Hi, everybody, and welcome to Elevate Your Life with Dr. T here on Dr.T TV. Now, this is a place where we give emotionally sensitive, intuitive, gifted people the ability to have a voice, tell us what they're up to, and have them provide some of their gifts and insights and tools to make our lives better. And with me today is Johnathan Prichard, who is a professional mentalist and the author of Think Like a Mind Reader. Welcome to the show, Johnathan.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Great to have you here. And so, because what you do is so amazingly unique and cool, I'm going to have you go ahead and tell us about yourself a bit here, and we'll get started after that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, my name is Johnathan Prichard, and for basically all of my life, I've been touring the world as a mentalist, which is kind of like a magician who specializes in mind reading tricks. So basically, predicting the future, reading minds, influencing decisions, basically everything that would go in the ESP bag, that's what I specialize in. Everything I do is based off applied psychology, showmanship, and just having the gumption to do it. So I've entertained the troops stationed in South Korea. I've performed on Vegas main stages, been on national television projects, consulted for Chris Angel, been brought in to talk about mindset and thinking about innovation for BP, State Farm, entertained the C-suite of United Airlines. So that just following my curiosity about how people think and why they do what they do in the context of an entertainment but just kind of show dynamic
Yeah.
has literally taken me around the world. So I like spreading the gospel.
I love it. So clearly you are a highly intuitive person, and it sounds like you're following, your sense of where to go and who to serve, and I love it. Feels like, a real sense of exactly who you are, right? Not trying to be somebody else's version of something. It really sounds like a very intuitive life that you're living. And my question to you first is, when did you know that you had these intuitive gifts and like start to begin to expand them and really acknowledge them?
I would say I wasn't born with them, and I haven't always been this way. I mean, in one way, I'm intensely introverted. Like, I love being by myself and not seeing anybody for days and weeks on end. It's great. So the punctuation of being a speaker and being on stage in front of 1,000 people in the audience, I can manage that dynamic if I can just spend the next couple days by myself,
Got it.
right? So going from being super shy and introverted as a kid, I learned outgoing behaviors, but it was through the study of how people think and kind of how the mentalism tricks work really grew into that understanding of how people interact with reality and the ways that they're seeing reality gives you the ability to kind of see through their eyes and then meet them where they are, which comes across as, man, he knows exactly what I'm thinking. He just feels so natural and intuitive. It's kind of downstream from lots of careful study and practice.
So it sounds like when you were younger that maybe you didn't recognize that you were a gifted intuitive person, but it felt like, being shy and being sensitive and wanting to just be in your own space. Well, and now I guess you still want that as well. So, and then it blossomed into you really like being a scientist and a student of humans.
Right. Right.
And
And
yeah,
yeah, and also it's kind of like rarely is it about which flavor ice cream to go with. It's more of the anytime there's been a really big life decision, if there was that little voice going, you know what you should be doing, here's what you know you should do, and then you go, shut up, brain.
Yeah.
Here's the logical thing to do. You know, all of my friends and family are in support of this direction, and that little voice is opposed, like diametrically opposed, and going a totally different direction. You're like, that makes no sense. This one is the logical choice, the one that has social proof and my family wants, and the person I think I am wants to go that direction. Then you go that direction, and it destroys your life and winds up being just a brutal struggle. And then you eventually wind up over here, and you're like, oh, this fits so much better. Why did I ever think about not doing that? So it kind of comes from ignoring that voice, behaving as though that voice doesn't exist, and then living through the consequences of ignoring that little voice in the back of your head who is always accurate, who's always right, who always has it nailed down from the beginning. It's just that my goal is to spend less time getting back to that voice every time I hear it.
Got it. Well, I this so resonates with me because our emotional training programs that we do here at Dr. Tracy Inc. are all about people creating a relationship with themselves and really, knowing themselves on a truly deep level, and making a whole paradigm shift from all that one has absorbed, all the voices, all the messages that would say, oh, this is the prescription, and again, really start to tune in and follow their intuitive guidance and what I call their internal navigation system, and live that like a religion, so to speak. Like, this is the guideline for you with your, unique fingerprint. You are this. Even identical twins have a unique fingerprint, and this is what is being essentially given to you as directions. And to be able to live from that place of faith in those directions, right? Does that make sense for you too? Is that kind of how it fits for you?
Exactly, because it takes a remarkable amount of strength and confidence to live that out.
Yeah. I get it.
Being you is one of the bravest things you can do. Right?
We so agree, right? Like the courage to go, this is it. I'm following this. What else could be more correct than my own guided directions for myself? But to live them fully and follow those intentions is really something. I mean, that's what now, this is why you and I are here today, because we're following our internal navigation system, our internal guidance. It really is bold to be you. And don't you agree that it shouldn't have to be that bold for someone to be themselves?
Right, exactly. One of the things I was most scared of as a performer and an entertainer was losing that sense in the hall of mirrors of reflected adulation from fans and support. And if I had a character or a sense of me that isn't me, then the audience falls in love with that person who isn't me. And then the feeling is that I'm accepted so long as I'm not who I am.
As you're performing being a person. Yeah.
Exactly. So then you're setting up a dynamic where you're rewarded for not being you. And that is a very, very potent recipe for self-destructive behavior. So I had a stage name for quite a while. It started as a buffer so that I could have a separation between the stage adulation and the at-home dude who needs to do the dishes, right? Like, you can't tell me to do the dishes. I'm a rock star.
Yeah.
Right? But then it can easily develop into, oh no, I'm the character, not the person, and then you live a bifurcated life in that way. So instead, I try to approach my teaching and performing and everything as amplifying the best parts of who I am and reducing the noise in the signal of communicating my ideas.
Oh, that makes
So
so
it's
much
not
sense
that
to me.
I'm being somebody I'm not, it's being intentional about dialing up the cool parts.
Well, and don't you find even just being in the connection of when you can even say like, I'm checking in because I'm not sure which me is doing this, and I want to kind of know what's going on and keep track of yourself. And I love this objectivity that you're talking about, because self-manipulation is built into the equation, and it can come in yeah, you can start building an identity off of all kinds of things rather than really continually keep connecting to the truth of the situation and what's next for you.
Right. And I go back and forth, but am erring more on the side of imagination and creativity and unreasonableness the older I get, because well, let's just be logical about this, Johnathan. Well, okay, logic is a great way to describe that which is and to nail down what exists now. But it takes the power of imagination to envision a way that reality could be but is not yet.
Right.
That is the magic of imagination. And then putting your whole intellect and energy in service of that imaginary future is the power to transform what is now. So I'm not so concerned anymore with how things are in the moment, so much as what can I do now to create the future I would want to live in?
Well, this so resonates with me, because one of the most powerful focuses that I have and that we teach people that we work with and our whole team operates from is truly the sense that they're powerful. We're all powerful creators. We're creating in every moment. That's what's going on all the time. And so again, your imagination, the vision that you have, whatever comes to you, whatever you develop, that you are ultimately you are creating reality, shaping reality, and things literally just manifest from an intention to an outcome when you remove all the friction from it, and just again, yeah, follow that through in the big adventure of all things, because just being congruent with yourself right there has you in your power all the time. So how does that relate to what you think about and what you do and how it works for you?
Yeah, it's kind of the intentional magic, right? Because if you are constantly creating and you aren't in any way aware of the power of your creative capacity, you're constantly divorced from any ability to influence the creations you're bringing into existence, right?
Yeah.
So the longer it takes for somebody to realize their role in creating a life that they're living, they are constantly abdicating any ability or authority to make any kind of meaningful change.
Yeah, it's like, this is your true power when you get completely honest with yourself about just how powerful you are, because you can see your mixed set of outcomes. You can see, what I always say is, you can see where you were intentional and you go, oh, that's what I meant to create. And then you can see all you got to do is look at your results to go, okay, this is what I'm creating. And the good news is, if I shift from, what I call just sort of being in a reactive, unintentional state to being in an intentional state and just conditioning yourself for that, you're just in the driver's seat, because before the car was going and you were literally in the passenger seat.
Right. I think of it as radical self-ownership.
Totally. Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. And
radically
people don't
taking
want
ownership.
It's interesting how much people are afraid of it and don't want it. And I was just thinking about this last night. Like, if we could all just be completely honest to say we're just powerful creators. This is what we've been creating. What is it that we actually want to create, and send our attention in that direction and put our whole selves behind it.
Yep. There's a kind of a wrinkle for my personal life that exemplifies that pretty well. As I actually used to be married, got married super young, and then that was part of that little voice. It was one of those, if you're going to get married, this is the best opportunity to do it because this is a fantastic person who would make a great mom. Like all of the signs were saying yes, except my voice was like, don't do it. Right. So went through it. We were in marriage counseling and we were talking about something, and one of kind of my friends, we all have this saying where it's like dynamic problem solving, like, boom, okay, next problem. Right, like, okay, what's the next problem to solve? Right. And the person that we were working with was like, next problem. Let's dig into that. Let's unpack that a little bit and go into that. It was like, yeah, that's kind of focusing on the negative. How about if you tried next solution?
Isn't that?
And I thought it was the goofiest thing. Like, that's honestly, in the moment, I was like, that's kind of goofy. But it rapidly became kind of my motto. It's like, all right, next solution, right? It's kind of focus on what you do want, what you can do, instead of spending any energy on lamenting a dynamic that you have no ability to influence. It's just wasted energy.
Well, Johnathan, as we're getting to know each other, I really feel like, we're brother and sister from a mother somewhere. And I love that because I don't even know if you know this, but one of our programs is called the Dr.T Solution. And it's really all about this whole concept of, in the creative process, every single impulse matters. So how you're describing it, what it is that you're doing. And I find, I'm sure that you do also, that most people aren't even aware of exactly how much time is going on, where we're conditioned to just look at what's not happening, what isn't working. And so to truly be, what I think about it is being accurate, but it's also being honest. What is it that we are actually doing here? If there's a problem, what do we actually do? We're in the creative process. So if we have it in that way, then I find that, people don't experience all the stress and the struggles, and you're actually in what do they call it? The flow, so to speak.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So with all of this that we're talking about, Johnathan, with all the things that you do and apply this to, share with all of us how it works when you're working with different segments, in your work, the corporations and things like that. Is the process the same? Is it the same framework? Is it different for different audiences, so to speak? How does that all work for you?
For me, it's all the same principles. The way that they are expressed are unique to the particular dynamic. The principle is human to human connection. That's it. Because relationships are your most powerful force in your life. And the relationship with yourself, with your resources, with your problems or opportunities, right? Yeah. Your friends, your family, your relationship of how you define yourself and the space between you and the outside world. That's your relationship. Okay. The quality of your relationship is dictated, like its upper limit of how awesome it can be is limited by your communication skills.
Totally. Yeah.
Right? If you can't even communicate with yourself in an honest way and be brutally honest about who you are and what you are and how you want to be, right, then that is going to affect everything downstream from that.
Yes.
Okay. So in order to connect more effectively, you have to be more and more in tune and honest with yourself and understand that first. Then you'll be more adept at meeting other people where they are.
Yeah, you'll be connected to yourself so that you can be connected to them. And then all of this stuff where everybody's like not feeling connected to each other and feeling this awkwardness or whatever it is that happens, the friction. It's really, the same theory here is that when you're connected to yourself, everything is available to you. You'll see it at
Right.
you'll see things at the true level that they're at, rather than all the kind of distractions. And
Exactly.
you'll be able to, instead of, I always say, the topics the topics are confusing, all the layers to that. And as an emotional scientist, which it sounds like we both are, we're really looking at what it is that's actually happening in the moment, not just the patterns of communication, but what is going on. And I'm getting a sense now that's probably how the whole mind reading piece works.
Right, right. Because in the context of a performance, I've spent decades learning how to manage every single detail. What I say, what I do, how I do it, when I do it. Right? Everything is managed so that I have the greatest chance of communicating what I want to communicate to my audience in a way that they will hear and understand. All right. So that's the entertainment side of it. Well, then in the corporate consulting world, when I come in and teach teams how to be better salespeople, how to be better negotiators, be better presenters, it's exactly that process, those principles of connection. It's just what's the context. Or if I'm helping a client at trade shows, those used to be a thing, right? so
Far
so
back, yeah.
right. So for that, what happens is my clients bring me in to develop a custom script and what's essentially a mini show that's about 10 to 12 minutes long that draws a crowd, entertains them, engages them, creates indelible associations with that fun and my client's brand, right? So then that also pre-qualifies the leads at scale. Because instead of having 3 or 4 salespeople qualifying people one at a time, so you could get maybe 8 an hour. Well, I draw a crowd of 20 or 30 people, and then every 10 minutes I'm sending those people to the sales team. It's a much more effective machine, right? But it's still connecting the right people to the right people by filtering out the people who aren't in alignment with the message that my clients or myself are communicating.
Yeah.
So all of this also flows from a practice in martial arts too.
Oh yeah,
It's just
I
kind of
definitely
like
want to learn more about that.
Yeah, if you're thinking about what you think is happening, you're gonna be too late, right?
Yeah, you're in reaction then. Ultimately, you're in a reactive state. Yeah.
Exactly. But if you learn how to be fully present and engage with the dynamic, you can then respond and proactively engage with it in a way that will help align you to the forces at play, so that your structure, your integrity can allow those forces to flow through you. It sounds like woo, weirdo, out there stuff, but it's literally true, right? Because if there's another person who's trying to impart their momentum to your body, well, there are better ways and worse ways for aligning your body to those forces that will either stick you to the ground and it transmits to the earth, or it gets stuck in your body and now you're the recipient of all that momentum.
Yeah. And you're not completely available to yourself for everything that you need to know in that dynamic moment to be available to you, but not on a delay.
Exactly. That's why I call that real time and echo time.
Makes perfect sense.
And there's evolutionary precedent for that. Like the sense of touch is one of the most ancient senses that there is. Like amoeba and cilia, they've got the sense of touch. So it's way more ancient than the complex visual sense. So it takes a lot more time for us to make sense of what we're seeing, but we can literally feel a dynamic instantly. But if you don't have practice of interpreting that physical connection and you rely solely on what you're seeing, it's going to take you longer to, one, realize what's happening, and then two, if you're thinking about what you think is happening, that's that disassociative kind of bifurcated reflection approach that keeps you as an ever-present separate observer to the moment that has already passed. So
and
if
that's
you've got
stressful,
two people,
right? That's stressful.
exactly, because the other person is never where you want them to be, right?
Yeah,
It's like,
you're
what's
always
happening? I'm always
reacting.
behind.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
always behind.
reacting.
Like, no matter what I do, I'm always too late. Well, it's because you're in echo time. You're not fully engaged in real time. So, of course, you're always going to be late and ineffective.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. We ultimately help people shift from a reactive state to an intentional state and condition themselves to do that over and over and over so that you're ultimately automated to respond intuitively and intentionally, and even be ahead of it a bit, so that the awareness just builds and builds. So you don't have to go, let me check in, the first how many hundreds of times you might do it. You're like, I got to check in. Okay, this is mine, this is yours, what do I want to do? Right. You ultimately just get to a point where that is all accessible to you.
Exactly. And it's kind of like I've gotten pretty much the same place through martial arts and kung fu practice. So to me, it's kind of one of those things of to find a place and to have people who love you enough to put you in those situations so that you can learn to deprogram the reactivity and engage. It's very difficult to find people who will punch you in the face with love.
That is so true. I mean, that's a quotable.
Right? It's not fun. It's not enjoyable, but it is one of the most valuable things if you want to improve and to be more intentional about how you devote your energy. So that's why it's like, to me, Kung Fu is it, because there's no rationalizing, there's no fantasy that will survive getting punched in the face. It's like, here's what reality is. Here's what's really happening.
What's going on? Yeah.
Are you going to get angry about it? Are you going to get upset about it? Are you going to try to talk your way out of it? No. What are you going to do? What are you going to do to not get punched in the face?
Yeah. How are you going to be? How are you going to operate? My stepson, Gaston, has been a lifelong martial artist and owns a martial arts studio here in Marin County. Yeah. And, as I observe what he does and how he teaches and what's really going on at the studio, right, truly that development of, instead of having life be so traumatic all the time, it's like, well, reality is happening. So if you are the one initiating and activating, and I see things that he's teaching where the energy's coming at you, and how do you work with the energy rather than just be at the effect of the energy.
Right. Because if you resist or push away, you're presenting the structure for that momentum to operate against.
That makes a lot of sense. Wow.
If you engage and embrace the dynamic, you now have your whole being in order to navigate that dynamic.
Wow.
Right? Like, it's literally true.
It is. Otherwise, life is so everybody's reacting and traumatized and stressed, and it is truly because you're not understanding that you are capable of manipulating all of the energy in some manner that you want it to go.
Right. And it's so weird for people to experience it for the first time, because there's a really cool exercise. It's basically a game. It's a laboratory for understanding exactly that dynamic. And it's called Chi-Sao, which loosely translates to sticky hands. It helps, because it'll help you to think of it as listening hands, to listen for the other person's intentions, right? And as people try to push me over, I allow them to push themselves off of me, which they are interpreting as me pushing them away. But all I'm doing is hearing their intention to push and then giving them something to push against. And since they aren't present with where they are, they can't help but push themselves away.
Got it.
And they don't have the experience to understand that, no, you pushed yourself away from me. I didn't have to do anything but let you do what it is you wanted to do.
And that's something to understand, that you're doing all the time in reaction to all kinds of things that are also trying to come to you. And if you're in a receptive process to all of these intentions and all of that, it has a whole different quality, because then you can receive what you want and shift in another direction, whatever it is that's present. And it's an amazing quality. This is that powerful, creative quality that's there, so that life isn't, I was thinking of this morning, like even we take childhood, like childhood should not be something that you should feel like you have to survive. You're telling your war stories your whole life. But we're not taught this at an early age, and then everything is so traumatic, and everybody then spends their life trying to recover from that, when this capacity is there within us, but there's not a lot of developmental process that goes on, where people are teaching this to people at a young age.
Right, exactly. It's usually relegated to esoteric teachings or far out there fantasy world stuff that has a kernel of perceiving reality, that kind of thing. But it opens the door to all sorts of wacky stuff that has zero effectiveness in the world, right? Oh. So that's why I like the grounded nature of martial arts and Kung Fu as a way of doing that, because eventually you realize that it's actually a loving embrace and an openness to that which is. It's not just a focus on how to be more violent.
Right.
And a scary realization you get to is, I'm not fighting the other person. Oftentimes, the most direct way to destroy someone is to allow them to experience the consequences of what they want.
Yes. So they get their curriculum, and the whole thing would be even better if they understood that that's what was going on. They were getting their own feedback loop, and they can shift that feedback loop and keep seeing what the data is telling them, and keep developing everything, rather than, again, be sort of this whole story that life is hard and everybody's kind of a victim of it.
Right. It's like, because you're learning how to manage a dynamic situation. So there's kind of the three levels I like to think about and point to is stillness at rest, stillness in motion, and stillness in relationship. It's easy to sit and meditate when you're in your quiet place, far removed from any distractions, and everything is just so. I have my incense here, and I have my music over here, and everything is perfect, and now I can meditate, and now I'm one with my being, right? And then you get up off your
meditation
cushion,
pillow,
they stub your toe. You're like, come on, stop. Right? And all of that anger comes up. You're just like, all you did was move. Like, that was it. There wasn't even anybody else around.
That is so
you
true.
did that to yourself, right? So being able to maintain that same kind of stillness, even as you move about your day, super difficult. Then you can move around your day-to-day and maintain that stillness. And you're like, oh, look at me. I'm so holy. Oh, I'm so spiritually enlightened. Look how cool I am. And then you go hang out with your family.
Right? The big dynamic situation. Yeah,
exactly. So then you're in the middle of traffic. You are in dynamic relationship with other human beings who may or may not have plans to destroy your well-being. Right?
Absolutely. And they don't even know that they have those plans. Yeah,
exactly. So how in the world are you going to maintain your spiritual awareness in that dynamic relationship if you haven't done the work of moving through those stages of competence? You absolutely cannot skip steps.
It makes so much sense.
Can't do it.
This is why, what I've learned over time is that having people essentially emotionally train themselves in the belly of the beast, in the midst of everything, through this relationship with themselves, this connection with themselves. That's how it all really develops because, as somebody who treats lots of different mental health disorders, watching people go into a treatment center and then bounce out of it and a week later be relapsing, my thought was like, well, it's because we're not doing this in real life. You're getting all this great food, you're having everybody kiss your ass, you're here to get well, but what does that really mean? Because as ultimately, as you say, there's a dynamic situation going on, and that's actually what you're needing to learn in order to develop and be in the fulfillment of connection with other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it is so valuable when you can find somebody who can help you navigate those difficult dynamics by having a safe laboratory where you do know that you're going to make it out alive, but then be put in situations that you don't think you would be capable of experiencing and making it through. So you're just pushing the envelope of your competence. You make it through and go, I never thought in a million years I'd be able to do that. And through demonstrating competence,
To
you
yourself.
build your confidence. And that is the role of your guru, your shaman, your kung fu master, who is able to beat you up with love.
Contain you. Contain you in the curriculum.
Exactly. Exactly. And then you're forging an indomitable spirit by facing your fears as presented by the kung fu master to help manage everything that's happening inside. So earlier you were talking about the situations and the topics and everything is confusing. That manifests in the way of, okay, Johnathan, yeah, but what about this situation? What about this dynamic? And now there's this. It's like, I can never tell you what to do. I can only help show you who to be.
Yeah.
And if you are in proper alignment, the what to do spontaneously arises in relationship with the dynamic.
It's really
but
amazing.
Any prescription of what to do is going to be missing a lot of the required elements of being engaged in that dynamic.
Yeah.
So any prescription of what to do is going to be just not serving you well. So all I can help you do is be aware of what's happening inside so that remains still and you are giving yourself the best opportunity to make it through the situation.
I love that. It's, I think about it as you can either be in a reactive state, or if you find that you are if you feel stress, it's essentially that you're in a reactive dynamic, right? All of you is not online available in that moment. And a simple question that says, okay, what's my intention? Everything starts to arise, everything to do next, the steps and all of that. And to your point, but then that message to you is the prescription. It's not someone else's voice. And to remove, okay, hang on, let me get these voices out of here and go, let me just clarify that direction again.
Right. And in a very literal physical way, when you're in connection with other people, you can feel their intention move. They then become aware of it, and then the body moves.
Makes perfect sense.
You can feel their intention before they're even consciously aware that that's what they're meaning to do.
It's incredible to be aware at that level, and again, to see things really at the emotional level, so that otherwise I feel like people get hooked into the topic, and then all of this time and energy in life is spent going down the rabbit hole of a topic, when really what's happening is the dynamic, and you shift everything at the level of the dynamic, which then the topics are relevant to whatever degree they are. But otherwise people are just missing so much of the information and the communication that's coming to them non-verbally.
Exactly, because most of the time people are concerned with what's happening outside
Yep.
and dealing with other people's intentions for them.
Yep.
And how do I react to that intention? And that's always, again, putting them behind in the tempo.
Yep.
And they are now reacting to somebody else's intentions. So, of course, how in the world are you ever going to get ahead of that game when somebody else has already had time to think about what it is that they want for you and applying their intention? There's no way that you can escape the consequences of dealing with somebody else's intentions by being concerned with what their intentions are. The only way out is to reclaim your own mind and assert your own intentions for yourself. And that shows up in on the mats, right? Because if I'm applying my momentum to a student, you can just see them freak out, right? They're just like, oh, how do I deal with this? Oh, God. And they're getting thrown around everywhere. And then if you just go, don't fight me, do what you want to do.
Right.
It's night and day different of, oh, crap, now I have a lot to deal with because they're applying their intention. Right.
Instead of being a reactor to instead of being a reaction to everything, I always say, you be you, I'll be me. But what's really implied is be the true you, because that's really what's supposed to be going on. And when you're congruent with that, then I can really understand you. And you be you, I'll be me. I'll say this is what I want, and I'm not going to take responsibility for you. Your job is to say, well, this is what I want.
Right. And that word of congruency, that is paramount, because in the practice, there's a exercise or a form, whatever you want to call it, called Sunintao, which is loosely translated to the little idea or little mind fist. Right?
The little mind fist.
Yeah. And it's pointing to, there's a lot that you could be thinking about. There's infinite numbers of things that you could be distracted by. But if you focus your mind solely on that which you intend to do and align your intention, your mind, energy, momentum, body, life to that one focused thing, what in the world could stand in front of that?
Yeah.
Right? So it's learning to align your body and life to the forces of the universe in a most ideal way to handle that momentum. Right?
And
that
really
is integrity.
Beautiful,
That's
isn't it?
congruency.
It's really a beautiful thing, and it's all the things you're talking about, martial arts and all of that. It really is this whole, because it's not just, it is your mind, but I know what's implied there is, you said your whole self, because there's an entire energy of the self that people aren't even connected to. They don't have it lit up and being able to really access and utilize every bit that is available within, I don't know, it could be in your liver or whatever it is.
Right.
And using the true power that's there. And what I love what we're talking about so much is because people, there's so much exhaustion and everybody's so tired and fatigued. And yet my sense, and it sounds like from you as well, that this is the quality of reacting all the time, which is very exhausting.
How many internal wars are you fighting? If you aren't in alignment with yourself, you are constantly bleeding energy internally, fighting with competing desires or competing principles or competing goals. So the more goals you have that are inherently at odds with themselves, of course it's going to take energy to maintain things that don't really exist and are fighting against each other. No wonder you're exhausted.
Oh, yeah.
You're fighting yourself. Right? Like, what do I need to do to fight somebody who's already defeated themselves? Like nothing. Right? Just let you be tired and exhausted.
Yeah.
So that's what I love about Kung Fu and that whole thing is most people are distracted by the violence part of it. And they're like, oh, it's so aggressive and punching and kicking, when really it's radical self-love and integration and embracing the world and realizing that you want to stop doing your part of hurting yourself and therefore others, and learning how to manage your relationships and dynamics to take care of everybody. Right? It's as far from fighting as you could get. It's the other person who's trying to violate your boundaries that is bouncing off your radical self-integration.
Makes so much sense. Now, Johnathan, I know you do a lot of coaching of different types. And so, for thinking of our audience, which is, very intuitive, emotionally sensitive people who some of them are aware of their gifts and some of them are really coming to terms with just how powerful they are. And, just thinking about how you work with people and what that does for them. What is that process, or what can people expect? So that we can learn about what it is that you help people to be able to do.
Basically, my job is to help people do less. Right? That's another part of being exhausted, is to identify all the stuff that you're thinking, doing, feeling that isn't serving you. And my money is on 99% of it is extraneous. And almost always the most effective strategy is to help them put that down and remove it, not add something else. Right. So most often the most effective things is helping people get rid of beliefs and approaches and strategies that aren't really serving their needs. So first you got to figure out where they are, then figure out where they'd want to be. And from an outside context, it's your job to be able to identify what the real problems are. Because most of the time, people's idea of what the problem is actually a really bad explanation of what their symptoms are.
Yeah, it makes so much sense to me.
Yeah. If they knew what the problem was, they would have been able to fix it. The fact that they still have the problem is a really good indicator that you don't know what the problem is. And the problem that you're dealing with is actually downstream, right? Because what most people say is the problem, again, are the issues that are arising as a consequence of the real problem. Yeah. So you can put Band-Aids and address symptoms all day long, but if you don't fix the cause, then there's never a solution. And almost always the cause is the mind.
Well, isn't it fascinating how well, first of all, how true that is. This is why I help people just look at the emotional level of everything, because there are massive industries built on symptom management and disjointed, I'm going over here for this symptom and here for this, and we're just not getting real about what it is that's developing that. And I understand people have not been trained with that paradigm to really look that deeply at it. And in fact, the opposite is that I keep being very amused by how much people want to run away from even the word like emotion and just go within and get to the deeper honesty and start to recognize themselves. And I couldn't agree with you more that things are easier and simpler. All these chronic diseases, everything like that, they're easier and simpler with the management of oneself and the principles that you're sharing with us today.
Right. For me, the process is physical first. Be able to manage this meat sack that you call a body, right? Just have some sort of physical practice, whether it's seated meditation, kung fu, yoga,
ballroom
whatever.
dancing.
Go lift weights. Right? Yeah. So learn how to manage your body through space. Yeah. That will give you a context to learn how to manage your emotional state. Because the more in control of your body you are, the more aware you are of its internal experience. And that's where the emotions are living, in motion, right?
They are.
As through expression of your body.
Dynamic.
Only then can you start to address the mental stuff, because that is downflow from the emotional state.
Makes perfect
right?
sense.
So then after you've learned to not control through restriction, but control through understanding and allowing to be, then you can control your mind. Only then can you control your breath. Because as you're meditating and you're feeling your emotions come up, you get lost in your head and you lose control of your breath, right? You don't control your breath and then your mind. It's you control your mind, then your breath. Then once you've learned to control all of that, then you're in that weird mystical realm of energy, right?
Fascinating.
So again, those are the steps and the sequence. No skipping steps here.
You can't.
None. You can't do it. So that's why when people are talking about, here's how you manage your energy. Oh, you've got amazing. And they can't manage any of those other levels. If I could push them over with the finger, I'm like, all right, you lack the control required to instruct at that level.
I having been an athlete my whole life and then sort of transitioned to the athletic, artistic process of ballroom dancing about 10 years ago, if you really want to know yourself, do something in your body and pay attention, because every pattern that you have emotionally, behaviorally, it's right there available for you to just know yourself and every inch of yourself on this incredible level. And I thought to myself, I learned so much more than in just, psychology school or whatever, which was sort of just icing on the cake for an intuitive person already. Right. So Johnathan, what are the results that, again, thinking of our really intuitive, emotionally sensitive audience, what are some of the results, the typical results that people get by being guided by you and led by you and mentored by you? What can they expect?
Greater ease, being more relaxed through competence, not ignoring, right? It's kind of like lions are very relaxed. Why? They're incredibly dangerous. Why are they dangerous? They've accepted their power. They know exactly what they can create. And how can anything that hasn't been through that possibly affect me? Right? So it's the just kind of relaxed power of accepting all of who you are. And that is so much more relaxing and enjoyable than being at war with yourself. And at that point, you can manifest and direct your intention in a much more effective way. So you start to learn how to be more proactive about creating what it is that you want, instead of flailing and be like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. It's more of I'm a powerful, very capable person. And I can now not only imagine what I want, but make it happen. Like that's pretty important. That is the true magic.
Pretty important. Isn't that interesting that it does feel like magic to people, but this is essentially what we're in. This is all inborn within us.
Right.
And it's like we're not let in on the secret until there's a problem people try to solve later with some struggle. And it's like, oh, surprise, you've had this your whole life.
Exactly. What a way I like to explain that is, the audience watches my 70-minute mind reading show that's taking me around the world. And the whole time they're going, that's impossible. No way. That can't possibly happen. To me, it's just another day at the office.
Get it.
So the only difference between the audience and the archetypal magician is understanding the power of creation and the laws that govern its existence. That's it. That's the only difference, right?
Wow.
To the magician, it's just another day creating wonder and amazement. To the audience, it's something impossible that could never be.
I love that because everybody's capable of creating wonder and amazement. And, I always think when people that say to me like, I'm bored or whatever, I'm like, oh, go deeper into your capacities as a person. And this is why also spending time with oneself is so cool, because you just get to realize just how freaking cool you actually are if you have some time to like really keep assessing your own gifts and power and how they're working and how you want to calibrate them.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Right.
it's really interesting. So Johnathan, how about the book? What do you want people to know about the book and what they can get out of that? What will happen for them?
Outstanding. Okay. The book is basically my answer to seeing so many people talk about mindset and claiming to understand how the mind works. And then wondering, wait a minute, could you stand in front of a room full of 3,000 people and convince them that you could read minds? Oh, you can't do that? I understand this stuff better than you.
Makes so
Right?
much sense.
So I had to share it because I was seeing so much wrong information out there in the world. And it was basically born out of performing for about 10 years at colleges. So colleges have entertainment budgets and then book entertainers like me to come put on a show and entertain the students. It's part of their thing, right? So I'll do my 70-minute mind reading show, and there'll be a 45-minute autograph line afterwards. And I'm signing autographs, signing posters, taking pictures, that kind of thing. And over and over and over and over again, all across the country, I kept hearing, man, I can't even imagine doing what you do. And it's two layers. The first is, well, I can't even imagine how those tricks work. More deeply, it means I can't even imagine how in the world you live your life, because it's so not go to a cubicle, die working for Megacorp, right? That's their trajectory, man. Like that, I'm going to college to get good grades, to get the good job, to get a salary, to die with the gold watch, right? So then there's me blazing through like a comet, be like, what is that thing? What is a Johnathan? Like,
this
what?
is your job? Right? You're like, this is me.
Exactly. Right. Like, it makes no sense. You get paid to read minds. Like, you get paid to type keys and data entry. It was already like, how do you get paid to put in information to a computer from this place to that place? It was already there. Explain that to me, right? So over the years of talking with people after shows, the same 20 concerns or issues or worries or topics kept coming up over and over and over again. So then I'd be like, so here's how I think about things. I grew up in a single wide trailer on a dirt road. I'm a hillbilly. Like, grew up in the mountains of North Carolina. My dad worked 14-hour factory days. My mom's a secretary. Like, that's my pedigree. And now I travel the world. So don't tell me it was handed to me, right? Like, it was the result of being able to envision what I wanted and to devote my energies to create it through every single choice I made that either brought me closer or farther away from it. Okay. That's not how most people think, right? That's super weird. So it makes sense based on my experience and my life and my background that this is just the way I do things. And the older I got, the weirder I realized it was. But the emails I started getting a couple of years after talking to these college kids saying, hey, thank you so much for talking to me for that 10 minutes, made all the difference in the world. Here's what I did as a consequence of it. And my life is better than I ever could have imagined. That's when I started realizing, crap, I actually have to start sharing this stuff.
Yeah. I know the feeling.
Because the communication and the principles that govern whether my show works or not are exactly the same principles that govern whether this project is successful or not, or this intention is successful or not. And I realized that the way I think and the principles it's built on govern all of human relationships, regardless of culture or background. It doesn't matter. It's all fundamental pre-cultural mental processes that govern how we as humans relate to reality.
Yeah.
So it has application to business, to sales, to leadership, to self-confidence, to relationship building, to anything, anywhere there's a human being involved. If you learn how human beings think, it's like unlocking the secret to all.
Yes.
Just it's
I
just
call
awesome.
it the keys to the kingdom, which I sometimes sounds weird. I'm like,
Right,
I understand the keys here. This is the
right.
this is the
And
emotional level.
since I'm a super nerd, so to me, I'm like, it's like getting admin access to everybody's operating system.
It is.
When most people barely even know their own password to their own account, you get root privileges to the whole system and can help them unlock new functionality that wasn't previously available to them. Right. So that's really what the book is, because it is learning how to think like a mind reader, is learning to think in a creative, empowering way that can embolden you to create something that you thought was impossible. Right? Because that's it. That's that's impossible. Don't tell me that's impossible. I do it every day. That's my day job, is the impossible. Right. So it's just challenging those mental beliefs that are holding back people's ability to create what they want to live.
I love this. You're giving people so much. You're giving people the keys to the kingdom here, right? So,
and the book itself is a prop you can use to do a magic trick on your friends. and the process of learning how to perform that trick properly and pull it off is exactly the same process as learning to be a better public speaker or a better communicator.
Yeah,
I love it. It's applicable on multiple levels. It's meta real. It is metaphysically applicable beyond the concrete. Do this, then that, then this. Yeah.
So Johnathan, you've got a really important thing that you're doing, a message that you're giving. You're really serving humanity. The question I have is sort of like, if you were not going to be here tomorrow anymore, right? And this is a moment to give that contribution to people, the imprint that they'll take forward with them. And, maybe they'll say, this is that thing Johnathan taught me. And maybe ultimately they'll also just realize, this is the thing that they now understand and know. What is that message, that contribution? What is it that you really want people to understand?
I would say at the heart of all my work is helping people become the alchemist they were dreamt by the universe to be. Yeah. And really quickly, alchemists were people that believed that lead was a base metal that through a process or system could be refined until it was finally gold, something valuable. So they tried everything to transmute this abundant, worthless thing into what is usually a rare, valuable thing. Okay, we do that every day. It's called time. We all have a lot of time, and your creativity governs the best strategies you have to transmute that time into other value. Once you fully appreciate that time is where all other value comes from, you then realize that time really is your most valuable resource. Most people never understand how to transmute their time into other value. So if you value money more than time, you'll waste a decade trying to make $1. Yeah. The people who really understand that how you spend your time is what creates money. If you try to save money by spending time, you're actually losing twice as much money. And the time that could have been spent creating something even more valuable, like a relationship or a painting.
Whatever you want.
Anything,
whatever you really want.
Yeah. Right. So every decision that you make is your strategy for how to transmute your time into a life you want to live. So whether or not you like it, whether or not you're aware of it, you are an alchemist whose goal is to transmute time into life and creation.
Beautiful.
That's it.
Everybody take that in right there. That's a huge imprint that can carry you throughout your whole life, in every moment, every dynamic moment, right? That is requiring you to be intentional.
Right.
It's requiring you, right?
Because again, magic doesn't happen by magic.
Yeah.
It happens through discipline and practice.
It does. So, Johnathan, for to give people a sense of where they can connect with you and find you and work with you and learn more about you, where do you want people to go?
Let's see. The kind of corporate side is hellstromgroup.com. That's my international consulting firm. We've worked on 6 out of the 7 continents. If you know somebody in Antarctica, please get me in touch.
You got it. Let's create that now.
Exactly. So that is where, if you have a group of people that you want to train in the ways of ethical influence, negotiation, sales, presentation skills, those kind of soft skills, you mean the most important elements of success? Yeah, that's where you should go. If you're more interested in the kind of personal work and in the way that I think and share all those strategies, go to mindreaderuniversity.com. That's where I'm sharing all my courses and videos and ebooks and all that kind of stuff, down to the t-shirts that say Mind Reader University with just kind of looks like a college shirt. If you want to know what it's like to be trapped in a car with me for 14 hours where I just say whatever's coming to mind, find me on Twitter, where I talk about life, liberty, radical self-ownership, creativity, technology, all sorts of weird stuff. Find me at _Prichard. So those are, I've got a lot of other projects, a lot of other directions I go, but those are the kind of the main nodes where everything else branches from.
Well, I really want to thank you for being with us today. It's one of these moments where I just feel like we could be just continually, in this unfolding, and that's like really what I want to do, but I'm also thinking about all of you, the audience, and what will serve you best. And so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here, Johnathan, and just say this has just been an absolute gift to spend this time with you. And I really invite all of you, to follow up here and really learn from Johnathan, because I've learned so much today, and I really invite you all to do the same and take it a step further. All right, everyone.
Appreciate it.
So, all right. So everyone, also at the same time, check out Johnathan. Keep in mind that emotional training and mind reader training and all of this is really the big gift that we're here giving you today, to really actually recognize that you are a truly gifted person. And just being absolutely honest about that is, I think, between Johnathan and I, say this is one of our highest recommendations. So thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
My pleasure.